and backed by popular demand. I don't know if it's popular. I think one person said we should do this.
We'll take it.
Apparently, that's enough to breathe some life into this old mare.
Those are good poll numbers for us.
It's 100% of one person. It's great.
That's
great.
Right.
And of course, like, I did not do my homework, so I don't know who actually it would be. I mean, I suppose I could like maybe actually spend like 30 seconds here and look at comments and maybe see who it might be. And I'm stalling for time as I look. A friend of a friend 5766 is the actual
friend
user.
Of a friend 57. Okay, cool. Funny.
Yeah, that's a mouthful. He's got a pretty sunset in his profile picture, but he basically asked, he's like, 3 years down the line, I'd be interested to see about an update to our then top 5 lists. So
right. Which we had Nick on that show.
We did, and that was fun. And we kind of thought about getting him back, but at the same time, it's also like, you know, schedules are hard. You know, life and that.
Schedules are hard. And then we were talking about 5 games each, which is 15. That now we're talking about 10. Just between you and me, that's 20. Not counting overlap.
And let's be honest, I think we could just plug Nick in, and I bet you would probably stay about the same. Like, it's going to be 24. It's going to be 26.
Right. There would definitely be some things like on my list that Nick's not a fan of, but yeah.
This is true. Anything with dual gauge track, he's not loving, for sure. But
so if we want to have a real, you know, battle royale, we'll get you and the 4 tracks guys, and we'll have to determine what the all-time best 18xx game ever is.
Ooh. I think I know the answer to that. The one you're playing at that moment.
There you go. Would be great.
Right? Because let's face it.
Yeah. No.
You know, I'm literally...
You're very diplomatic, sir.
Well, I'm like literally chatting with a guy on Facebook because I'm going to buy a few of his 18xx games. And, you know, inevitably, the question is, so why are you getting rid of them? Like, you know, is it because you're not able to play them? Is it because you're downsizing your collection? What? And, you know, because secretly we're all fishing for people to play games with. Let's be honest here. And turns out it was exactly that. He got super excited about the hobby, and then he went in and he bought a bunch of games. Now, he's having a hard time getting them played with his group, but I'll give you some idea of why he might be having some issues. And, you know, if you're hearing this, Kush, it's not a slant. It's just, I just think it's fun to talk about. But he's selling me 18 mag and 1822, full version 22.
Full.
But he's keeping 41 for himself for later. So I would classify those games as being aspirational. I think is a good, you know, if you're trying to start out a group, I could think of some different choices. Yeah.
To start with, sure.
Yeah. But so I thought it was fun. And, you know, we've kind of been on this kind of renaissance period here of great games, a lot of things coming out, a lot of new stuff has dropped in the 2-3 years since we did the last list. And then you and I previously in 2018, I want to say, we did a list back when I was doing Game All Night, which was my late night board game talk show. And right. I also did my list. I did my list, your list with you, but then I did a top 5 with Ambi Valdez and talked about our top 5s. So we kind of have some history to kind of go on here and kind of discuss. So I know looking at my list, some things have changed, which I think is pretty cool. Like, you know, definitely grown.
Yeah. You know, like the list you refer to were all 5s.
Right.
And So, and what we're going to talk about tonight is like the top 5, but the next top 5 too,
Yeah,
right?
not the bottom
And,
5.
and a
It's a
couple of
different show.
no. So it's really going to be top 10 and maybe 1 or 2 runners up, So,
Right.
but like, so there's lots of position changes and things like that, and yeah, and changes to the top 5 themselves.
So last time we did this, one thing that you were adamant about was I don't want to order them. I don't want to rank them. That was kind of a big overriding caveat. Did you approach the list the same way this time, or did you change your approach?
I changed my approach, sir.
Yes, there are winners and there are losers.
There's no participation trophies tonight. No, I actually I have my top 12 in numerical order for the first time probably in my life. So
wow.
Yeah.
And probably subject to change in another 3 years when we do this again.
I would hope so, because that would mean like super cool new games have come out.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely reflected in my list, right? Like a lot of innovative games are populating my list this time around. I was a little different with how I built my list compared to you, though. I think I was very methodical. Like I went to my spreadsheet that I log all my plays in, and then I took that and I plugged it into there's an online engine called PubMeeple, which will help you rank things. If you ever need to rank anything, you can put a list of, I don't care, you can put a list of culinary herbs in there if you want, and you can rank them. Cilantro is number 1. You can rank them. I love cilantro. It's not a culinary herb though. That's just actually, it's a spice, but I digress. You're not wrong, but it's delicious. But I put it in there and then it spit out my final record because it does a lot of A/B testing and it gives you a result. I will tell you it's not perfect because sometimes it'll put your number 1 against your number 2 at the very beginning.
So it's like brackets, like
it's
say
doing that
basketball tournament.
It's kind of doing that.
Okay.
It's all behind the scenes, and it'll ask you about different games, and it'll compare like 2 games, and you basically have to A/B it. Which one do you choose?
Yeah,
and you do that, and sometimes you'll see the same game multiple times.
Okay, but then, it's not like you had to kind of rank things and then put them in. It's helping you rank them. Okay, I understand.
100%. Cool. Like, how many times did you choose this game? And I'm like, well, it's hard because let's be honest, it's all situational. Like who you're playing with, how many people you have, etc. So that kind of got me, I'd say 90% of the way there, and then it's just a little massaging after the fact to just kind of say, you know what? This is ranked lower, but my feeling about it is better, or vice versa. Like I like it. Sure. I don't top 10 like it. So,
because like there's the mechanical aspects of the game and there's the experiential aspects of the game play, right? Where I had a bad experience. I had a great experience. I won, I lost. Usually that doesn't really matter, but like, maybe there was someone less fun at the table or something like that. So, yeah. All of that can affect your opinion of a game.
It's 100% because the experience. I mean, let's face it. For the most part, we play this game for the experience that it gives us, right? And the experience is a spectrum. And I don't know about you, but I know for a lot of people, winning isn't always the best end of the spectrum. It definitely can enhance a game, and being good at a thing is always fabulous. But it's part of the equation. So how did you pick yours, Tony?
I went completely emotional, not methodical.
So funny. Who's the engineer of the group too?
I went downstairs and I stared at the tracks library, right? Because the tracks library is a collection of my games and the games Trax has purchased for the convention.
Pretty extensive libraries.
and like I don't need to look at the collection to know what my favorites are necessarily, right? Because there's certain games that stand out in my mind. But it's good to like see that and drink that in and go, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, and just kind of preliminary, that was the bubble sort, and now I'm gonna go ahead and rank them and stuff. So
Yeah. So when it came down to your final ranking, did you kind of feel like it was, here are 10 games we're going to play tonight? Whatever game you want to play at the perfect player count, what's the first thing you want to play? What's the last thing you want to play? Did you kind of approach it that way then?
no, I mean I didn't really think of a scenario like that. It was just like thinking about the mechanics of the game, my experiences with the game, and and when I think about like the mechanics of the game, it's like, what are the things in there that I like? What are the things in there that I think are just absolutely brilliant, right? And that's it about the mechanics, right? And it's not necessarily where it's set or the particular history or anything like that, right? Because like I'm a mechanics guy, so.
Yeah, and I'd say that that's also true of myself. Although like that final massage is 100% emotional, right? You're like, what do you mean that game's not my top 10? No, it belongs there. And I literally made a switch right before when we were talking the first time, because something didn't make it. It didn't make it even into the list. And I'm like, this belongs there, because apparently it was a flaw in the spreadsheet that I never logged plays in that one game. So it got completely missed. Well, I stopped logging for about a year and a half. I used to be very good about it, and then I kind of stalled and I went back through. So I must have missed it entirely, which there are reasons for that, because maybe it wasn't on that list when I received that list from Tony when we were playing online board games. Maybe it's presented itself after that fact somehow. But
cool.
So those are the ground rules, meaning however you get there is how you get there, and by no means whatsoever is this an endorsement to say you need to hunt down a copy of game X at all costs, because it's absolutely fabulous. This is not that kind of a list, because these lists they're really driven by game groups. And a lot of the reasons I love a game is how my group, or when I come to tracks and come out west, how my surrogate group plays. So what is awesome for me might absolutely not be awesome for you. And Correct. We're also Tony's. Oh my God, Tony, how long? Like, what do you think? 15 years in 18XX proper since?
God, how old do you think I am, pal?
Well, actually, what, 12 years, right? So you probably got into it because I remember there was like shortly into heavy cardboard, right?
Back in the heavy cardboard days, yeah. But I mean, I have, let's see, I'm looking at my spreadsheet. Between online and in person, 828 plays. Up until and including yesterday, we played 1822 PNW yesterday.
Good game as well. And I'm sitting at just around 100. So, I obviously, my homegrown game group is not quite as robust. But that's also part of the reason why I want to move to Colorado.
Half the time I've been playing, and he's got way more plays than I have, so like it's all just, whatever. It's all numbers.
It is. But, a person who's played 20 games would probably be more akin to the first time I did this list. Person who's played 50 games, probably akin to my second list. And then this list, I feel, is much more mature as I've had more plays of a lot of games as time has gone on. So your experience is your own. Own it. Hunt down anything at your peril. These are not endorsements, but if you purchase them, well, hey, I don't think there's not too much on my list that would be hard for you to get. You might have to wait a year or plus for one of them, but I think the rest of them are attainable.
Yeah. There's a couple on mine that are, let's see.
Which, I mean, take us back 5 years. This was not the case.
Yeah.
It's a glorious time, people. It's glorious.
It really is. It really is. That's a great point. Looking at my list, there's like one or two that might be more challenging to get, but not
unobtainium, right? Like,
Correct. Correct.
I mean, we're giving away we're not putting OE on our list here, but there are a few games that are not hard to come by, and you can get OE if you want. Mark Derrick was selling his copy for only $500 Canadian. Very reasonable ask.
Very reasonable. But like you say, we are in a wonderful time in terms of the publishing of these games, because many of the games on my list, I'm sure you feel the same. Only recently had, within the last, say, maybe 3-4 years, have like a large publication distribution, that kind of thing. Heretofore, they were handmade, okay, I will ship that to you in 10 months, for $150, that kind of stuff. So, it's great.
Yeah. And we're definitely living in a great time. So without further ado, we're going to kind of get into this. We're going to break it up into 2 parts. We're going to talk about our lower 5 and then our high 5. And we'll probably mention a few honorable mentions right here up front, as we get into the yellow phase.
Okay. 10 through 6 plus the honorable mentions is what you're saying.
So we'll kind of lead off with honorable mentions. So these are ones that just didn't quite make the list, or kind of fell off, or just outside. Still great games. We still love them. We won't turn down a play of them. For me, number 1, and if you played along with the home version of the game, 22 MRS fell off the top 10. It actually kind of squeaked in at like number 11 for me. And 1861 missed the cut. It's always been in the hunt, but this year it just kind of slipped off a little bit. How about you, Tony?
Well, let's see. I want to address a couple things there.
Yeah. Go ahead.
With 1861, I know that when you, me, and Nick were together, you had 1867 on your list, and you specifically said over 1861 because you like the way the Canadian works or whatever. But that is really, really, really super interesting to me. I'm sure we'll end up talking more about this. And then MRS, which is like a shorter 22. That's interesting as well, sir. Wow.
Yeah. And that was like 22 was on, and we'll kind of talk about this when we hit Brown. Yeah. 22 originally was on my list. MRS was on my last list. And now here it's fallen off out of the top 10. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. I have 3 runners up, actually, not 2. I thought I had 2. So number 13, again, I'm ranked. Number 13 is Railways of the Lost Atlas, which is a newer game that's really not in everyone's hands yet, of course.
Sure.
But they're very generous folks. They sent us a copy to play at tracks, and it's really a pretty cool game. You build the map. That's going to shape. That's the first part of the game is that everybody builds the map. That's going to shape what's going to then happen.
Mm-hmm.
And they really have a solid 18xx game on top of that fun thing to do, right? Then you play, and it's like, okay, cool, because it's got mergers and things. And,
big surprise, it's got mergers. Tony likes it.
Powers, right. And it can produce a challenging game. Like we have seen bankruptcies in our place.
Okay,
so that's kind of cool. 12 for me would be 1888N.
Yes.
Which has, spoiler alert, knocked 18 Chesapeake out of this list. I'd still play 18 Chesapeake anytime. Both of these games are 1830. base, but like I just feel like I like the map better in 1888N, and just feel like the companies, all of them, have more viability than some of the
Yeah,
companies in
yeah. There's
Chesapeake.
no. I don't feel like you have clear openings as much, and I really like
Yeah,
the destination effect. So I think that really helps
yeah,
make a lot of companies viable more from the jump.
yeah.
I think that's
It's
also
something.
a great candidate for a future topic because I finally got a play
Sure.
in the other week, and I, aside from the whole not being able to briefcase, I really enjoyed it.
Number 11 is 1841, and
Mm.
just the whole concept, right? That the mechanic of companies starting companies
Started
uh,
companies.
is amazing. I've only got like 2 plays though, and
Okay,
I really want to play more. Um, I'm more in love with the mechanics than the map,
sure.
with the borders and the that kind of stuff. But like, yeah, that's one that I admire mechanically and want to
It's
play more of.
it's on the I have a full day of tracks I want to kill and not do anything else. It's on that list because I
No, no,
really
no.
no
If you just play with the guys from Utah, it won't be all day. You'll just play for like 2 hours and you're gone. You'll be bankrupt.
because I'll
You
be
go do
bankrupt.
something
Okay.
else.
It's kind of the way I
So
feel
it's
about
not an all day
17.
thing, Chris.
So yeah, it popped up on the radar last year, and I know it's one of the systems that you really enjoy, and being operationally focused, I really want to try it because it sounds so fun.
Yeah, weirdly operational because it's not really. I mean, it's operational shenanigans, right? Companies starting
Mm,
companies. So I guess
yeah,
that's also financial shenanigans. I don't know. It's yeah,
yeah, but I like what that's doing. But that's, I mean, hey, you could have fun just playing our almost rans just as much as playing any of the ones that are coming up here. So
hell yeah.
so
So
let's
now, how
start
are we
off.
going to do this? Are we going to go like one at a time? 10, 10, 9, 9, 8, 8?
So I kind of think my brain is saying I want to hold your number one till last. So
Whoa, wait a
I'll
minute.
go
This
first.
is 6 through 10. This is a countdown.
Right. So I think in this part, I'm going to go. I'll do my number 10, then you do your number, or you'll
Okay,
do
yeah.
your number 10, then I'll do my number 10, and we'll alternate that way this half, and then we'll switch for the
Okay.
second,
So
just to make it
my
different.
number 10.
Yeah, so we'll start with you on this half.
Yeah.
That's the long way of saying, like, you're hearing the sausage being made now, people. But
Sure, sure, sure.
because I don't really edit for content. I just edit for swear
Well,
words. I don't even do that.
hey, it's just more fun to get online and hang out with you and just chat and figure it out as we go.
Exactly. So Tony, you're
So
number
number
10.
10, right? It's 1817, and I'm going to include in that 18 USA and 18 NA, North America.
Okay.
I've not played 18 WO. Not going to. It's good. I'm just going to play NA, 17, and USA. But like, why I love it, right? So the level of financial shenanigans, right? It's just unparalleled in
Yeah.
any other game
Off the charts.
ever, right? It's just so damn interesting, and I'm so damn terrible at it. It is a tough one to get at the table with my group, but I am enamored with it. We've had some folks coming on Thursday Night Game Group that are 18xx heads, and they like 17, and we've actually gotten together and played it once, and we need to do that some more.
Yes.
Tony and Amy, I'm talking to you.
Of course.
But like, very long, entertaining stock rounds at certain points. What 2, 5, and 10 share companies? You're bidding for starting locations, mergers, liquidation, company sales, loans,
Those
stock
loans.
shorting. Oh my god! I have a challenge for you, Chris, or listeners, and I've seen this done one time. I haven't played a ton of times, maybe half a dozen here. But like, I saw a person open a 2-share company at the beginning of the game and maintain it as a 2-share company the entire game by feeding it, trains and stuff from other companies, and then skillfully removing those problems. Yes, it was Jeroen. Yeah, so I think 1817 would be higher on my list if I could actually play it more often.
Yeah, it definitely
Maybe gain
needs
a
a
little
lot of
more
plays.
proficiency. It's
Yeah.
not like I need to be good at it, because I don't give a shit if I win or lose, right? Like, I want to be more proficient at it so that I can manipulate those levers better and more.
Yeah, I think there's a fine line between understanding a game well enough to be able to actually play it and understand why you lose.
Boom. Yeah.
And I've played 17 once, NA once. I really liked the North America map just because I liked that it wasn't quite as predetermined with the starting locations as regular 17. But let's be honest.
Locations. So
Yeah,
there are no starting locations. Oh, well, I mean, there are ones you want to start in, sure. Yeah.
But
I get it. I get what you're saying.
17 lives on the shelf. It's in shrink, but I did buy it just so that with the anticipation of I'm going to learn this thing, and I'm with you. But it didn't make my list at all because it's so far beyond. And again, 2 plays, barely enough to understand why my stock got trashed.
What is your 10?
My 10 is going to be Railways of the Lost Atlas, actually.
Oh, sweet.
Got this last time at Tracks. Like, we played it twice last year at Caboose.
Yes.
So the fall of last year, we played it twice. And then I played it 3 times over the course of the recent round at Tracks. And that's a couple reasons. Number one, very quick to get out, because setting up the game is part of the game. So, it's one of those that you can table super fast. We had an hour before closing time one night, and we actually broke out the short map, which basically you play till almost the 4 trains and you're done. And even that was a very quick, fun experience. And, not a throwaway one by any means, because, I beat your own. So, you got to say that. But it was,
wow.
Yeah, it was, it's just one of those games that I really enjoy. And again, I think it's a candidate for a future episode. So stay tuned, because we've both played it enough to talk about it. I think it's literally on the boat right now or hitting port. So it was kickstarted successfully and making its way to the wider masses. But I really like it. And I used to think like the MacGuffin was the map. But the more I've played it, the more I kind of feel that that's a MacGuffin. But I also really like the individual railroad powers and how they come out, because it's almost like a draft with how they come out. Right?
That's right. They're stacked, right? So
yeah. And so sometimes, you're like, well, I really don't want to start anything because I don't want that company. I want the one that's behind it. It's going to be a better match for my merger. It's very interesting what they've done there. And I think, it doesn't really reveal itself until a couple plays in, but I really fell in love with it. I ordered a copy of it immediately after last Tracks. So I can't wait to get my copy because I'm excited. It's good. More on that maybe in the future.
Definitely.
Excellent.
All right,
Mr. Tony.
My number 10, or number 9, rather.
Number nueve, as it were.
Number 9 is 18 Ireland.
Really?
Yes, 18 Ireland. And so why do I love it? Well, poverty is fun. The payouts are so low. Like, the game has a $4,000 bank and it takes 4 or 5 hours to play. Contrast that to a game that also takes 4 or 5 hours to play that has a $12,000 bank. Okay.
Yeah. Money tight does not begin to define money in that
Yes, yes.
game.
Poverty. I also love the way that the towns are implemented in 18 Ireland. I think it's really brilliant.
It's
Remember that, because towns are going to come up in a couple of other games too. Because for me,
interesting.
towns are a love-hate relationship. So, yes.
Fair.
So, but like the best part of the game for me is obviously the merger mechanic, right? With the voting, the shareholder voting. It's just, I'm going to use this word too many times tonight. Brilliant, because it is brilliant.
Well, it'd be in your
And the
top 10.
ways that
It's
you
got
can
to be.
manipulate, yeah, the ways that you can manipulate the vote, right? Like an example, I have this crappy company. I'm going to issue a share. That way I get some money I can use, but I'm also lowering the price, and that share in the bank is going to vote positive for a merger to help me get rid of, it's just like, there's so many of those little things you can do. It's just super fun. And there's a couple asterisks here, right? One is 5-player or 6-player only. Like, really,
Wow.
you got 3 or 4, just unless it's a learning game, go do something else. Because with 5 and 6 players, somebody's going to go home crying, right? So that's why you're playing 18 Ireland, so that someone goes home crying.
Somebody's going home crying and having an aversion to potatoes all of a sudden.
But no.
Yes.
Nice.
What that leads me to one of my 2 dislikes of 18 Ireland is the way that the game makes essentially disqualified players hang on.
Ugh.
I don't really like. You're in
Instead of letting
financial
them
trouble,
bankrupt out or something
you're gonna
like
have
that.
to force buy a train, but you have to buy the cheapest train, and they have those previously rusted trains, and that just prolongs your ending, right?
Yeah.
Like, I wish there was just like, hey, you're done, go watch TV, rather than hang on for another 2 hours in this miserable situation that in this 6-player game you're finishing 10th. Okay.
Right.
My other dislike is, even though I love the way the towns are implemented and I think they're brilliant, it does with the dual gauge kind of thing. Even though you don't run 2 gauges of track, it's not a dual gauge train game. But the track has dual gauges. It's a complicated track manifest that I've seen people get frustrated with.
Yeah.
I was like, there's only one of this tile. Crap, you used it over here. It's so, maybe that's a thing there. So my dream is, I would love to see a game that implements that merger mechanism, maybe a more typical track manifest, and a way to exit players without, torturing them for 2 more hours.
Interesting. And we have talked about Ireland in the past, so if you're interested, you can check that out and go in depth, because there's a lot to talk about. That's definitely a lot of different MacGuffins in that game, for sure.
Yeah.
So, all right.
What's your 9, bud?
My 9 is actually 18 New York, 18 NY. Yeah, this I struggled to put this on last time because I don't think I had played it enough. And, with the recent reprint, I've got a few plays in with it, and got to play a game with both Bruce Beard and John Tamplin in it, mind you, and still came out liking the game. So it was a lesson in how to play it, and it was a lot of fun. It was very, what's interesting is, I know Pierre personally. It's a topic that we do want to talk about in the future, and trying to get him. It's a little harder to get him to sit down, but the changes he's made and why he made decisions, I think, really factors into why I like the game. I think
Cool.
it really kind of, the story behind the game kind of plays into why I enjoy it. Even though, like I said, completely schooled last time. But it was a fun schooling, and I think that there's still a lot to explore. I think it's a neat piece, because I like how the history kind of works in it. I think that how the Waterland route is run and everything. I think it's very kind of thematically appropriate, and I like how it works.
Yes.
But
The water level route.
yes.
Yes. Because our last issue of Mainline Magazine was about the 20th Century Limited, which ran. That's the only reason I know it was called the water level route, Chris. Yeah, but dude, and the NYC is like my favorite railroad of the U.S. And
Exactly.
how that game models its formation and what companies do and don't go in. It's super cool.
Yeah, and I think with the reprint, a lot of the reprints that All Aboard has done do feel very much like, here's some fresh paint, looks better components, go play and have fun. I don't feel that way about New York. I feel like New York was genuinely a retune and a reworking. So it's kind of like, in car parlance, we would call it a resto mod, where you took this shell, but you kind of beefed it up underneath to make it a little more fun and kind of level it out a little bit. And I think they did a very good job. So if you like games where minors go into majors and bigger companies form, minors play a big role. You can have viability on most corners of the map. It's a lot of fun.
Hostile
I really enjoy
acquisitions.
Hostile acquisitions, yes.
Yeah, it's a cool game.
If you hate train rust, you don't necessarily rust a train. You basically, it goes obsolete and you get a few bucks for it, which is also nice because you're never train tight. You're never locked in. So there's some softer corners that other people might like as well. So that's why it has made the list and been set at number 9, which means the Ocho.
The Ocho is 1830.
30
is my number Ocho. Yes.
So if that's, I would say that's the grandmother, and 29 is the grandfather. So I think we're kind of
sure. And Chris, that's a perfect segue, because that's why 1830 is where it is on my list, right? Because it's not so much 1830, right? Because the map is a little stale for me and stuff like that, right? But the brilliant simplicity of its rules, right? I mean, I joke around and I say, look, there's only 3 rules in 1830, but what possibilities it creates is pretty damn incredible, manipulating turn order with stock sales and arbitraging for profit and effect, right?
Yes.
And company looting, company dumping, the train rush, briefcase. I mean, there's just so much goodness,
so many levers
in there. Yeah. One of my favorite things, right? It should be everybody who plays 1830. This must be one of their favorite things. I'm going to buy the first D train by turning in a 4 train, trading in a 4 train.
Any 30 base game where you can pull that off, you feel like a goddamn genius.
It feels good.
It's there is very few feelings that match that in this genre for sure.
I like, and here's another town reference, right? I like towns in 1830 for me are love and hate, right? Because it's because they count as a stop, and it's damn, why is there a town there? Well, crap, I guess I have to run it. But I also love that aspect, right? And in 1830, that figures into another thing I like about it, right? Is that restrictive track manifest, right? Like towns don't upgrade. And there's only straight yellow city tiles, there's not gentle curves and tight curves and stuff like that for the cities, so while I think that with the cities in particular, it's kind of a game mechanic, it does create a bit of a puzzle for you, right?
Right. So, interesting.
But you're in green soon enough, right? 1830. So
yeah, I think it's it's homage, it's everything. It covers a lot of ground by loving that game, right? Because how many other games can we even think about when we say board games in general have spawned so many, variations of the pretty much same set? Yeah.
To what your segue was. It's like that's why it's so high on the list. It's not because 1830 itself, its map and everything is amazing, but it is. But like I said, that's a little stale. Like the things that have come from and derived from 1830 are incredible, and it speaks to, I don't know, the Hall of Fame status of 1830, if you ask me.
But then it also kind of falls back on. I'm gonna hit my car metaphor again because it works. 1888N is a modern 1830 variant that is slick. It's got a 6-speed. It can do what it needs to do. It's pretty smooth in its operation. It's got enough polish and enough chrome. But then you got 1830, which is more like the 3-speed on the column, where you got only straight cities. You only have X amounts. You can't upgrade dits, but it's still great to bring to a car show because people still love it, right? Like
yeah.
It's a classic for a reason, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Awesome.
What's your Ocho, pal?
So we kind of talked about it a little bit before. Why did MRS fall off the list? And that's because there is a 22 on my list. It lives here, and it's 22MX.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Very nice.
I always liked 18 mechs, and I still do.
Sure.
I like the
Speaking
map.
of 1830 games.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
I really like it, but I love what MX does, with, the building cubes, with, the fact that you kind of have the 22 system, the way the NDEM like dissolves over time. It's the reverse of a Monster National. It privatizes itself.
Right? Yeah.
So it's and it's a map where you can actually use Baja California, and it actually is viable running down that little stretch. I really like it. It's one of the best implementations of 22. Well, in my opinion, spoilers, it's my favorite 22 implementation. I think PNW could be on here. I need more plays of it. Frankly, sure. I just have 1.5 plays of PNW, and one of those was on a prototype. So I don't feel I have enough data to make that call. I like what PNW does. I like some of the MacGuffins. I love Seattle, Portland. I love all that stuff. But right now, MX just kind of fills my 22 spot in my heart for me. And it just, it's great. And if you get the super special map that I may have acquired from a great friend, it's even good at 3 and 2.
We played PNW yesterday, 4-player game.
Okay.
And yes, I believe that it does definitely have that ability to join your list somewhere, Chris. So.
Yeah, I like the logging. I like what it does. It's just getting things out at the end of the day is actually a little easier, but the mergers are a little more involved. So it's a bit of a trade-off there. But no, I enjoyed it. But again, I don't feel I enjoyed it enough to warrant adding to the list because my opinion still holds. All right, sir. That brings us to your number 7, lucky number 7.
All right. Number 7 is 1846.
Let me guess.
Yeah.
Very similar reasons as you have for 30, I'm guessing, on this one.
No, not at all.
No?
Not at all.
Because I was thinking everything you were saying about 1830 I was getting that exact same vibe for 1846. Like, to me, it just kind of, it has that same kind of nostalgic vibe for me.
Okay. Well, I'm not feeling the nostalgia on it, but I just find it super fun, right? Like it's a great map to play with. I think it's fun. Here's towns again. It's very refreshing not to have towns on the map, just to have cities.
Sure. And you can even buy the right train and ignore some of those too.
Correct. a classic incremental capitalization game. And I love the challenge of incremental cap games because, there's always things like issuing shares, which is not a bad thing to do. It's also not a bad thing to buy your components or your opponents shares early on, right? And like buy them while they're cheap, deny them future capital. And always starting off a company and worrying if you're going to have enough capital to do the things, is anybody going to invest? It's that's great stuff with incremental cap. The opening gambit of starting a company at 40 at the first stock round and closing it to send all those 2 trains into a company you care about is amazingly fun. And when people see you try that, or you see someone try that and they know what you're doing, then it becomes a bit of a risky dance, because it's like, now, well, have I already shared what company I really care about? Have I already started it, or am I waiting for that? And how are they going to counter this? And there's some really cool jockeying that can happen.
But aren't you sad when somebody does that with the New York Central now? Because that's usually the one that seems to get it.
Well, no. New York Central can run a lot of 2 trains, so I want to run. That's the company I want to care about when I do the other thing. But and 46 is also, there is an emotional quotient here. It's not my first 18xx game. That was 18EU. In a terrible experience, but 46 was my second, and it was a great experience because that's where Chad Cook introduced me, or reintroduced me. He's like, you just need to play with the right people. Reintroduced me to this genre of games, and started my addiction and and my sloping downhill to the Spiralide Train Gaming Mutant that I am today. And 46 was also the first 18x game I ever had a victory in.
It's funny. It's the first one I've ever had a victory in too. It didn't, spoilers, it didn't make my list. Just because while I really like it and I've played it recently, I like some Chrome that comes, and you'll see that pop up later. Okay. But I love it. I got to run the Grand Trunk, and there was some hateful track getting laid trying to get into Chicago. And then the New York Central and I were both sitting 2 tiles away. Neither of us would flinch because there was one token on that ranch. It was just long enough that it kept me out of first. And I think it was like, I missed first by like a couple $100. It was close, but that stall hurt that much. Nice. I mean, the Grand Trunk can do pretty well up in that corridor alone without needing it, but I had both the cattle and the port, so I was losing that money into Chicago every time. So
it's beautiful.
Yeah, but I what I like about 46, and I think it's one of the reasons why the people who like 46 and play it again and again and again, is because I think it is one of those games where it's not rote, but there are definitely some strategies that make a lot of sense, and you can kind of really pull those levers and play with them and really kind of have a lot of fun within a very limited sandbox. I think it's great for that. I think you're absolutely right. Good choice.
It's a great game. Well, what's slotted into your number 7?
It's got a 7 as well. It's got a 6 in front of it. So 1867, as you said, I like 67 slightly better than I like 61, mostly because it doesn't feel as, like we just said, it doesn't feel quite as scripted, with how everything comes out and where things start and how things are placed. I like how the Canadian runs a little bit better. Then I like how the national runs and the Russian. I think it speeds up play a little bit, but I do get that the export can put some people off, and they're not wrong. It can definitely be a little daunting, but I don't mind exports. I'm not I don't think I'm good enough to care about that yet. But I don't mind it because it moves the game when somebody isn't. And I think that sometimes you need that. So, yeah, I like it. I think it's solid. I like Ian's interpretation and growth. I like what he did with, the new one with the BF. I think that's really interesting. Would I want to play that over 67? TBD. I don't know if I need that long of a game every single time, but I like that 67 kind of still is it's one of 2 games in a day. You don't need to spend all day playing it. So, yeah.
Cool.
Canada, eh?
Canada, eh? Wow, so it just started raining here.
Oh, nice. Don't worry. It won't last that long. Well, it doesn't have hail involved. So this brings us to our number six, which will round out yellow. So
yes.
Before we advance to green, we're going to kill those
I would
twos.
say once again, Mr. Whitpan, you have had a perfect segue. Because number 6 for me is 1861 in parentheses 1867. Because I feel the opposite. I prefer 61 to 67.
That's funny. Yes.
I do like 67 where I'm going to auction the place that I'm starting this company as well. So the starting locations aren't necessarily fixed, but I don't really like 67's map. And so in some ways, the starting locations are actually fixed. You just don't think they are.
Sure.
So
that's fair.
Yeah. So 61 though, it's the first one. I love it. It's got mergers, as you know. Love games with mergers. I love, here comes towns again. I love how it treats towns, right? Because I can run them or I can ignore them. It is my choice.
Which I do like. I appreciate that.
I'm going to use the word again. I just think that's brilliant, right? So,
yeah.
Nationalization is an amazing mechanic. Hey, it's good to be nationalized at times, right? Like, you got to know, like, I'm going to start these companies and these I care about and these I don't. You get a little money back, you get your liability removed, and you're supporting, the Russian railroad to buy trains. Yes. And that one thing I do dislike is, the running and operating the Russian, right? Like, it's fine, but I do prefer 67's implementation there.
Yeah, I do like that the way the Russian kind of gobbles trains sometimes, because it can gobble something unexpected, where I don't think the export of 67 is a perfect recreation of that, right?
Yeah. Pros and cons.
Yeah. I think it more simulates an extra player, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, in 61, yeah. One of my favorite things about 61 is the 3 train, right? Because it's an important train. It allows you to avoid nationalization in the minor companies that you wish to avoid nationalization with. And so, like, moving your trains and stacking the money where you want it so you get the 3 trains when you want it is always...
Loans aren't horrible. Loans are actually fun, right? Necessary.
And that's one of my favorite things too, right? Is like $135 and 2 loans gets you a 3 train. So boom. And then you move the 3 train off and let that one go in. It's just, it's a fantastic game, man.
I do like the version you did in Mainline 2, where you did the Union Pacific based version of
1864
this.
49er.
Yes,
as in mainline number 2.
I really like, because what's interesting is I kind of feel like, 61, 67, and 49er. I think one of the bigger differences, aside from the map, is how the Nationals treated in all 3 of them.
Yeah.
And I really like the way that you kind of had for those of you who don't know or don't get the magazine, it's a deck of cards that has configurations of trains that the UP will run, and you shuffle them up and you draw like one of 3 for each rank. And then you that's going to be its train deck. So you kind of don't know what it's doing, but you can still own shares now, which you can't do in the other 2.
Right. So you can get shares.
Right, but you never really become president, so you're just kind of
No,
investing. So it's kind of
no.
oh,
There
you
is a
can
10% presidency,
that's
and you can
what
only
I mean.
track,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. No, it's fun.
it's a very cool take. And again, it's just three ways to enjoy a very good system, in my opinion.
It's
Like I don't think you're
it's
wrong
a
for liking any of them.
no. I mean, 61 is arguably it should be higher, but there's so many games out there. It's 61 is amazing.
And you know what? Let's not forget it's been out a while. Like we've had a lot
Yeah.
of time with this game, and
Yes.
there are very
And
few
it's
games. I
maintained.
think there are very few games that do mergers as cleanly as
Yeah.
61, 67 do. I think that's one thing that they really streamlined and just smoothed out wonderfully. So, excellent choice.
Awesome. What is your
Sure.
choice for 6?
So mine is a newcomer to the scene, and it's SJ. Actually,
Oh.
I'm really enamored with SJ. I really enjoyed the 3 plays I got of it. It tracks enough to make me really kind of want to be able to dive into it. I love a game that sings with 3 because that's primarily what my group is. So, sometimes we get 4, which SJ works just fine with 4.
Sure.
But it's also, I really like it. I like what it does. I like a lot of the little MacGuffins in it, and I still feel there's a lot more to explore. I think I like the variability on start. All the things we talked about in the last episode about it. I mean, yeah, it had to make its way on here. Right now, when I'm looking at the list and I'm comparing A to B, I want more plays of this so I can get better at it.
I dig. Obviously, and yeah, we talked about it, but the nationalization is really cool. But like, you can play it full cap or incremental cap. There's 2. I mean, and they were both cool. We played it both ways.
Yeah, they both had different levers, right? Like it was both different. The nationalization is, again, unique. It's not like, oh, I'm going to open this company and dump it and then to the national. And like, has to be a good company. Otherwise, the national doesn't want it. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. It's wonderful.
It really is. I like that one company's just completely thrown out of the game. You have no idea. There's just somebody not in there. It's no, I think it's
variability.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun, but it's not crazy variability. It's enough that you're familiar with usually 80 to 90% walking into the game, right? Awesome. So that's our numbers 10 to 6 with some honorable mentions. I feel pretty good about that. I'm kind of surprised. I'm not gonna lie. A couple of theirs snuck on there that was a little surprising to me, Tony.
Yes, like full disclosure, Chris doesn't know what my list is, and I don't know what Chris's is. So like,
no, exactly.
This is news to each of us. I mean, we know what we like, but like, so.
Yeah, so we tried to specifically keep it like in our own little world so that we can kind of come into this fresh and genuine. So, let's get those green trains out and put some of those nice gentle 92s or 93s into the game and go to the green phase. That's a little bit of a deep cut. That's a little bit.
Okay.
All right, so it's Chris from the studio here to let you know that we're actually going to break this up into 2 parts. So join us next week when I will release part 2, and Tony and I will cover our numbers 5 through 1, and then also recap how we feel about our rankings from the past. So be sure to check back for that one. Thanks for listening to this week's episode. This Week and Each Week is brought to you by Game Toppers. Upgrade your gaming experience at GameToppersLLC.com. We'll see you next time.